So welcome. I'm Kent Gardner. I'm the Director of Instructional Technology at the University of Louisville School of Medicine. This is David Ayler. He's my Assistant Director. We have Dr. Amy Holmthauser. She's our Associate Dean for Medical Education and one of our instructors. And we have Travis Spalding, who is our Class of 2017 Vice President and was the student representative on our Renovation project. So we're going to kind of talk to you about how to completely rebuild a medical school in under a year. Not necessarily the preferred method, but it can be done. So to start off with, okay, it looks like we've got several people logged in. That's good. So we're going to hit you with a question. What are you hoping to get out of this? We're going to talk a little bit about small huddle spaces, large interactive rooms, an interactive building. We'll talk a little bit about interactive education in general, how to do AV specs and how to put together a building. Or, you know, if there's other things that y'all would like to talk about that we have expertise in, just let us know and we'll get to it. So I'll give everybody a few minutes to answer. I'm wondering about the Wi-Fi in here, maybe a little slow. If so, we'll just go on. What would you like to get out of this? I was stayed saying, yeah, that's a good one.
It's also debatable.
Yeah.
Well,
There's two assumptions in that question.
Yeah. Simulation, lab space, tech, and build out. Okay. Okay. New info. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead. It looks like just in general, things I'm looking at, ideals for your university. Okay. So we'll just kind of go through what we talked about, and then when we get to the collaborative space, or the collaboration part a little bit later, what I actually would like to do is for you to get together and we're going to try and put together a plan or an ideal of what you would like to do as next steps when you go home. So we'll go from there. Start off with, we're going to show you a little video.
Teachers that were the raw material needed to create a really great environment for critical thinking. And we had these very curious, very engaged, very interested and passionate students. But the physical plan always got in the way.
A few years ago, we started to notice a national trend in medical education that was stepping away from the traditional one presenter lecturing to a classroom of students and more into a collaborative team-based learning environment with the flipped classroom model.
I needed a large format room that was flat, that had seating for 30 small groups, each small group being 6 students, and each small group having access to their own microphone, to a screen that showed them what I wanted them to see in terms of posing them a problem that they need to work on, and a screen that they could share and show each other what they wanted to show to solve the problem. I wanted the ability, if I had more small groups, so even outside the bounds of that large format room, if I had additional small groups working in other spaces, they should be able to see what we're doing contemporaneously. We should be able to push that out to them, and they should be able to push a response back to us. In addition, I wanted to have the flexibility so that if a student found something that was really cool, that I thought was worth sharing with the entire class, I could push a button and I could show that to the entire class, instead of just trying to describe it verbally, which is what I would have been stuck trying to do previously.
We had old, deeply tiered lecture halls that just did not lend themselves well to learning in the new style.
We definitely realized that there was a lot of things this building lacked. If you're looking at the way that medical education is kind of trending, there's a lot of collaboration, a lot of really cool technology. We lacked that. We had a lecture hall, we had 6 really basic classrooms, but that was really it. A lot of really collaborative studying, learning with local faculty wasn't really possible.
So we found that there was a need for us to have a more collaborative space where students could work together, share technology, and share technology with the faculty.
So having those tables in that lecture hall is really great because you can sit down with 6 students. You have 2 monitors there right in front of you. You have access to the professors' lectures in front of you. You can also get on your computers, find your own resources, type out your own problems, put those on the other screen at your table, really talk about it, collaborate. If you have a question for your professor, get on the microphone and you can say that in front of the class. And it really fosters this really cool time where you can synthesize information from a lot of different sources and leave that lecture with a really core, integrated knowledge of the subject matter.
Okay, so we really did do this in 8 months. November of 2013, the architects came in. We realized we needed to renovate our space. We had plans for a new building, and we're having trouble getting funding for it, so we needed to renovate our space. And they told us there was no load-bearing walls on the north side of our building. So we took basically a back-of-the-napkin sketch to EDUCAUSE with us and started meeting with all of the AV vendors, the manufacturers, and started talking to them about what could we do to solve the problems we were looking at. And from November of 2013 till May of 2014 was our planning phase, and then all construction was done in 10 weeks. So $8.1 million renovation. We knocked out every wall on the north side of our building on the first and second floors and rebuilt it from scratch. So, like I say, very short time frame. Our breakout rooms are equipped with modular tables. There's glass boards for writing on, and then there's 2 60-inch displays in there. One the faculty control and one the student control, or the students can use both of them for study space. Our collaboration tables that you saw in the video, 6 students to a table with push to display buttons on the cables themselves. Students control one monitor, faculty control the other. Here's another picture without the students there. You can bring whatever device. We have an iPad requirement and a laptop requirement. They can use either, and then a push-to-talk microphone so that the table can be heard. We tie all this stuff together with an AMX 64 by 64 digital switch matrix, which allows us to route all of these sources to all of those displays. 12 breakout rooms per floor, in addition to the large breakout room on the first floor that has the 30 tables, plus 6 displays around the room. And then there's a Madero touch panel, 19-inch, that allows us to control all that for the faculty. And David's going to talk a little bit more about that later on. On the second floor, we put in a mildly tiered lecture hall that's more for video conferencing capabilities. We have 5 microphones in the ceiling that allow every student to be heard on the far site. There's 3 pan-tilt zoom cameras, one on each side of the front aiming at the students, and then one in the back in case the faculty is presenting it to the far side. This space does have power at each of the tables and can still be used collaboratively because each row backs up and is at the same level as the row behind it, so the students can turn and collaborate on their own devices. Now then, Dr. Holthauser is going to talk a little bit about how we use 115 and 215 for TBL and PBL.
Sure. So the large format room with multiple tables in it. So it has actually 30 tables, each seating 6. Each of those has the 2 screens that he was describing. I would say from a teaching perspective, that's my favorite space to use. The reasons are I use it sometimes just for straightforward lecture. Keeping in mind that really straightforward lecture anymore at least has some interactive components, usually asking questions or polling or something. I use it weekly for 3-hour team-based learning sessions. And team-based learning, for the lifespan of the class, an instructor puts the class into stable groups. So if you sitting over here, we're in a group, you'd be in the group all year for the whole class. The class usually meets about once a week, and most of the work of the class is actually done by students outside of class. When they come together, there's literally no part where I am teaching. It is all just a series of problems or questions, and they have to apply what they've already taught themselves and work together in a group. And then we use the system and the build that was done to gather their work, to allow me to push it out to the room, and to use them as teaching examples. So I think that team-based learning is one way that many universities, whether it's a university or not, many teachers are trying to use their in-class time more productively and to require application. The nice thing about it is you can have 160 students in a class like I do, and it's just one person, one teacher, but they truly are doing small group work. And so there's a lot of value in that. There's a lot of, I think, provosts and universities that really want to bring that to their students, and this is a manageable way to do it without having to pay 30 faculty members. PBL, or problem-based learning, is totally different, even though they both have BL in it. Problem-based learning, you're in a group of 6 to 10 people. You do have a teacher for each group, and the groups meet separately in small rooms. However, using again our example, I have a class of 160 students. I have 16 PBL groups. They meet in those smaller group rooms that you showed a picture of with the glass walls, the 2 16-inch monitors, and the modular tables. And to start each 2-hour session, I'm actually, as the lead teacher in another room, pushing out my content to them. So the nice things are that eliminates some of the variability you get in small group teaching, where each small group teacher was supposed to launch the session or orient the students and really get all the groups off on the same page. In addition, because the whole building is clustered together and wired together in ways that I don't understand because I'm not a tech genius like the guys that were helping design this, these spaces can all actually function as a unit. So if I have to flex anywhere between 6 people to 600 people, my very old building that was built in the 1960s can do that.
All right. And then, Travis, if you, having gone through TBL and PBL, will you give us a little bit of perspective of what it's like?
Sure, and I was really lucky. I'm currently a third-year student, and so this was done, this renovation, in between my first and second year. So I had a first year in kind of the old building, and I thought it was fine, but it's funny how hindsight is 20/20. After you have this new space and the new technology, it really is remarkable how much better it is. TBLs used to be done. You kind of saw a picture of those tiered auditoriums. There's a similar one across the courtyard that we used to use for the TBLs. You can imagine sitting and trying to talk to somebody and talk to your group. You're all kind of huddled, and somebody's turned around awkwardly looking back up to the row behind them. Then you're running up to the teacher to ask a question, and she's going to try to describe something, some kind of question. Instead of having access to screens, access to screens, access to computers, and access, if Dr. Holthauser is like, hey, somebody find a really cool picture of whatever, a cholecystectomy. Okay. And you can go find some kind of description of the procedure, some kind of picture, and that's a really good teaching point for her and allows us to utilize our own resources to figure those things out. So group-wise in TBL, it's been wonderful, and I do agree with PBL, where you're kind of separate. You're not all together in the same room. Having that kind of consistency and lack of variability, you have a lot of. This is true of a lot of types of education where you have a small group leader, and different people kind of have different preferences, different types of teaching, and so you may have a student on one end of the building that gets a whole different experience than somebody else because of the variability that's just kind of inherent with different clinicians, different instructors teaching us. And so to have a chance in the beginning of the sessions, and then maybe even throughout the sessions, as Dr. H checks back in with us, it's really nice to have that consistency.
The other thing that I would just add from a technology standpoint is one of the challenges in teaching medical learners is not that it's hard to find information. It's hard for them to find information. They can now Google or try to look up almost anything that they're seeing and any question that they have. The struggle that you have is the conflict that can be found between sources and helping them assess the validity of it, as well as the applicability to their individual situation. And so they might Google, come up with something that's kind of tangentially related, but isn't the best fit for the problem. And as their teacher, if you're trying to manage that for 160 students, the best you can do is kind of run around and look at each person's laptop, and it's not efficient. Even if you do have like a great teachable moment, it's only for that person. Because we can now do this, One of the parts about TBL is the questions are hard, they're worth points, and students will get them wrong, sometimes because they find sources that aren't right or valid. And they, they get a little activated because there's points involved, and they want to know exactly why, and, kind of who am I to say that it's not? So we put it up, and then the whole group can kind of learn from that example rather than just that one person or that one person small group. Go ahead, Ken.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about how we came to a lot of the meat of this project in our interactive room, how we came to our interactive table design. We had a couple of stipulations, a couple of requirements that we had to follow. Because of the load-bearing wall situation, our largest interactive classroom lecture hall was going to have to be 95 feet by 38 feet, and it had to hold all of our student body, 160 students, and every student in the class had to have the same learning experience. This is because of our accreditation requirements. Our last space, we had a tiered lecture hall that would hold about 100 students, and so we had an overflow room. Those in the overflow room did not meet the same learning experience as those in the tiered lecture hall. So that was just kind of one of the requirements there. Every table, you need to have some sort of collaboration technology. That's a given. The facilitator or the instructor in the room had to be able to go around to each table, and they had to be able to say, yeah, this group, they understand what's going on. I need to be able to share that with the rest of the class. So that was a technical requirement. Flexibility, we wanted to have the ability to change the size of the groups depending on future needs. And then table locations, this is pretty self-explanatory, but it was actually turned out to be a huge challenge. It had to allow for egress and ADA compliance. Every table had to be tall enough and wide enough to have wheelchair access. And everybody had to enter and exit the room without killing each other. So other considerations, what kind of collaboration tool were we going to choose? Was it going to be wireless or wired? So we considered lots of different collaboration tools, and we ended up going with the Extron Teamwork system. Would every table be a bring your own device table, or would we supply a device at every table and the student would walk in and see it there? We decided to go with bring your own device because our students have an iPad requirement and they have a laptop requirement. So how many screens at each table? What was the purpose of those screens? We wanted the tables to be able to share local content. So the screen at that table had to be able to do that. And then there's a question of whether or not, do we need to push content from the lecture podium to those tables? We ended up doing that. Fixed tables are modular. That's another flexibility issue. Did we want to design the room to where we could strike the tables or reconfigure them for different group sizes? But also special events. We had a large push from some administration at our university that they wanted to use this room as a convention space as well. So all those considerations we had to think about when we went through designing the room. And January and February 2014, it was about a 3-week process of designing this room. And so we got inspiration from the University of Western Australia with their interactive classroom. They decided to do fixed computers at their interactive tables. Their top screen was the content from the facilitator. The bottom screen was local content. And so, they did it well. This is 2013 when they did that. So why not just copy what they do? So we tried, and this is what I put together, and it just didn't work. We weren't maximizing the full square footage of the space. We had a lot of emptiness in the middle, and we had to have 4 feet of separation between the tables. We could not achieve that, so egress was an issue, and ADA compliance was an issue. So then, the big push around it also being a special events room. Maybe we would have the screens mounted on the wall, and then we would have tables that you could just scoot up to the screens and you could take away. Maybe we'd have some little tail come out from the wall where you could plug in your device. So we tried to make that work. Our faculty didn't like that, and ultimately what we came down to is that, okay, we're not doing special events in this space. This is an interactive classroom only. So then we moved on. And this was the first design that was given to us from our consultant. And there was some questions about, sight lines. Are all the students going to be able to see the facilitator and things like this? And so then we came up with this design It was a triangular design where you had 6 students at every station. These tables are actually 3 tables that you put together into one, a parallelogram, so you could potentially reconfigure them to do a different shape. So that adds flexibility to the room. And then we ended up going with, this is part of the inspiration of that design, is the company, they create tables like this that you can kind of reconfigure. But we ended up going with this design. And so, yeah, 2 screens at each table, 6 HDMI inputs for the bring your own device, and 1 VGA to support a legacy device. And then that was just a rendering of the room. And that's a close-up of the table. You can see that's an Extron teamwork system right there. These little cables are real handy. Just push button, and if you've got that plugged into your device, your device will shoot up onto that screen. And there are some students. This student right here is currently sharing his notation right there on that screen for the group to see. And then we've got our microscope up that the facilitator is displaying throughout the room. One of the big parts of the interactive table design was, yeah, we've got 2 screens here. We want to be able to copy that for consistency throughout the building. So we put that into our breakout rooms so that the student expects one thing here and one thing there, and then the same thing. And I think, probably for the sake of time, we probably want to just go on to the interactive portion, don't you think?
A couple things on the touch panel that I'd like to point out, and Dave was big on the design here, but there's a button over on the top that says Easy Mode. Basically, if you do have some of those faculty who are a little more resistant to change, they just want to do a lecture, they can walk in and press one button, they grab every screen in the room, and it's their PowerPoint. So they don't really have to think about, oh, you know, I can route this here, route that there. We also have 6 projection screens around the room, and you can change, you know, what's at the table, what's on the projection screen from multiple sources. But so that's where you get into standard collaboration mode. Then you go to video conferencing, and then there's a mode that we log into as technicians where we can route every input in the building to every output in the building. So we built it in 4 layers like that, and that worked out really well. So I'm going to come up here a second. We're going to change a few things. A couple of things we did right. We completed this without loss of class time. There was not students working in a class where hammer drills were going on down the hall or anything like that. We actually waited till class was over. We renovated our library during spring break so that our students would have a study space for over the summer who were studying for step 2. So step 1, nobody missed any class time through this project. And we actually fired up the first day of class and we're using this room, so in 10 weeks. We involved our faculty, staff, students, got everybody involved, not just administrators. It wasn't just some architects sitting in a room that did this. We got everybody involved, and that was a big help. That also went to our sanity level. Everybody was involved, so it was all of our fault, and we all get credit for it. We created multiple truly interactive spaces. Like Amy was saying, you can sit 6 people down at a table ad hoc. We're doing some of that, where a faculty member will just grab some students and sit down and go over something that they're having difficulty with. You can do that in those breakout rooms. Our students can use it in the study in the breakout rooms, and we can also go up to 600. Through switching capabilities, the whole space is flexible. Like I said, we can route anything to anywhere else. We sought out the expertise of the manufacturers. They know their switching gear. They know the concepts, and they know what other people have done. We got a lot of feedback. You know, Western Australia was brought to us by some of the vendors. The Australians, just in general, are doing education really well. They fund it federally. That's kind of nice. But anyway, they're doing some really cool stuff. And then, like I say, scalable. Some things we learned. Don't use an AV consultant. We did. Part of it was panic by our administration of the fact that this has to happen in 10 weeks. And they needed somebody who they thought was going to ride herd on it full time. It turns out that the AV consultant actually kind of slowed the process down and did some things. They don't understand our site. Now, if you don't have the expertise in-house, that's fine. I mean, I'm not trying to disparage AV consultants, but I think if you have expertise in-house, your AV people and your IT people know your faculty better and can be more interactive and are there every day and can see what's going on. So that's one we took away. We should have involved more people. We did have some time constraints because of the way we did this, but we had physical plant supervisors, for instance, and there's some things with the lighting that are a little quirky. It works really well, but there's some quirks. that some of the frontline electricians knew about from other projects they had worked on. They weren't in the room, just the supervisors were. So a couple things with some closet space where we got into discussions where it would have been helpful to have janitorial staff. Invite everybody, at least for the first few weeks. Get everybody to have a little bit of input in this, and then have touchstones with everybody as you go through once every few months. And cross-pollinate the discussions. There'd be times we'd be having a meeting, and then they go, okay, we're going to talk about furniture now, or we're going to talk about wall coverings. And me and David would get up and walk out. Okay, it's like, okay, well, y'all go on with that. We've got other things to do. There's some things we would have liked the room configured a little bit different, that if we'd stayed in the furniture discussions, or, gee, you know, we need sound dampening on a wall here or something, that would have been a little bit better, and we had to kind of retrofit a little bit of that. So just be involved in everything. Even if it doesn't sound like it's AV or IT or whatever your function is, in these interactive rooms, it all comes together. So that being said, you now can look at your Nearpod, put together a sketch of a room you'd like to do, make a list of some items you'd like to go over, and then we're going to try and get everybody together in groups and try and come away with, you know, a plan to take back. Whether it be you're just trying to put together a huddle space, whether you want to build an interactive building, whether you want, you know, a fairly large interactive classroom, or if you just want to do general AV in your rooms, just jot something together and take a couple minutes for that, and then we're going to take, we still got about 20 minutes, so then we'll take the rest of that time, go over it together, and you can ask questions of both Amy and Travis from their expertise, and then me and David thought we'd wander around, kind of facilitate, and talk about any technical details you wanted to know.
So I have a question. Well, my first question is, are you selling this design to other schools? Because lots of people could use your expertise and result there.
At the end of this, well, yeah, I mean, but I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. At the end of this, I'm going to show you links to our webpage. I'll share the line drawings. I'm going to share every picture that we've done. We'll share this, I mean, obviously for free. We've had some schools fly in and look at it. We'll help anybody that we can, yeah.
So my serious question is there easy access to online materials, for example, YouTube video, website, maybe a Google form with a quiz on it? Is this something that would be easy to bring into the shared workspaces?
Yes, we have a very robust wireless network in this building. Our IT infrastructure is engineered so that every person in the room is accounted to have 3 devices. So we're going to a depth of coverage at that level. So yes, the students can bring up live action video and play it, all of them at the same time in the same rooms. In our small breakout rooms, while we're talking about other collaborative, we also have Apple TVs around. So you can use Apple TVs to bring in video that way, or the students can use AirPlay in those rooms in addition to the wired connections.
When converting rooms like this, noise is a big issue if you have other classrooms. How are you handling the noise, or are all your buildings built to the wall from the floor all the way through?
The way the medical school is, we basically have one year of medical school per floor. So when the first floor interactive room is being used, most of those people are in that room. So it doesn't affect it. A little bit different the way medical school is than yeah, if you just drop this in the middle of a undergrad classroom with classrooms next to it, there is some chatter. We've got pretty good noise dampening though. You can be in the breakout rooms and you don't really hear them.
I would say that with this, with the small group rooms, that was a real point of discussion with design. One of the things, I actually wanted from both a teaching and a kind of a security or comfort standpoint, as I wanted to have a sight line. These small group rooms, there's 4 of them clustered around a central lounge, and as a former, female student, I wouldn't want to go study in a small group room that was totally enclosed, had one way in, one way out, and I couldn't see anybody coming. And so some of the decisions we made around that, one, to get into the lounge space, it's all badge access, so just security. But each small group room has 2 drywall insulated walls and 2 glass walls. And the glass walls, they made a really cool design decision to flip the, there's bands of frosting, but there's bands of just transparency too. And so the students use those as whiteboards, and it's a really awesome thing as a teacher. I can walk through and see exactly what my students do and don't understand. But noise was we had to like fight that battle because they were so worried about noise. Now I can tell you we're using this space and we use all of those small group rooms at the same time, and it's just not an issue. Because when you're talking, you're not really worried about it, you know, when the small groups are doing their work, if that's helpful.
How many different faculty teach in this? And if you've got more than one, how did you get trained on what can be a complicated system?
We have over 300 faculty teaching this space.
The training, the way we have done it, there's an equipment room off to the one side. I've stationed one of my staff members. That's their office now. We have, the way medical school is done, you have course directors or thread directors who are in class more often and kind of coordinated, but then you have a lot of faculty who come in for one day. We don't expect the one-day faculty to know how to do it. They are told, you know, what is available, and one of our people just goes up, pushes the buttons for them, gets everything lined out for them. And then when you have faculty who've been in the room for a while, a lot of times they'll take care of that themselves for the guest faculty that come in, or some of our students have even been trained how to help. So that's how we're handling it. We have a student tech rep in each class, and we always train them on how to use every room because they're in the room all the time, so that helps out. But yeah, we have changed our staffing. One person takes care of this building pretty much full time.
And I assume since you've got 30 tables, you've got 30 floor boxes for things for the power and
Yeah.
We do. We used a floor product called Do It Right This Time. It's a 4-inch, it's a dirt floor. It's a little acronym. They think it's funny. So anyway, it's about a 4-inch raised platform, and all the cabling was run through that to boxes. And in a pinch, you can bring up they're 30 by, or I don't know, they're panels about yay size. You can pop those panels up, and we've got carpet tiles. Is the way it was done. It was done with tiled carpeting. So in a pinch, you could pull up some carpet tiles, pop up one of those panels, and change the way the room's laid out is the idea, and save some money if you want to reconfigure.
And all the cable is actually not running conduit underneath that floor. Since it's 4 inches, there's not enough room for conduit, so we just laid it out along the concrete beneath.
They've got little cable guides that kind of, that are not sharpened. Part of the thing, like we talked about, mobility, there's a thought to moving towards mobility, and you could do it depending on the size of the room. You save an incredible amount of money by being able to have fixed locations.
Yeah, but it's the one thing I wish we'd done different.
Yeah.
And not built a lecture hall at all.
Well, that too, but yeah. That was one of the things on our takeaways, other things to think about that lessons learned. Be careful of how much input your traditional faculty have. They may come in and go, well, you don't really need this, you don't really need that. Remember, they're not the ones who are going to be using this space to its full potential. So you're building this for the faculty who are rising up, who need this. Let them kind of drive the bus. And tell those other faculty, hey, we've got some old lecture halls you can still use if you just want to stand up there and lecture. Because that was one of the other things. That's really why we ended up with a lecture hall on the second floor instead of 2 of those large interactive rooms was, well, we're still going to have to keep lecture for a while. Even though our curriculum says we don't, we still, we're doing flipped classes and all that. There's still that, these traditionalists who will want to say, oh, I need to be in front of everybody talking.
And I think, exactly. And I think the other thing is you can lecture in a more interactive space. It's like anything else. It's like when you're designing, when you're designing accessible space as an architect, if you make it so it's accessible to everybody with disabilities, it works just as well for folks who don't have disabilities. I'm not saying an interactive teacher is disabled, but I think I could never get it, like why some of the more established faculty were so worried about having a lecture space. You can lecture in this interactive space just fine. Students like it better because students like tables, and they like having their stuff there, and they have their own little screen. They're not like looking far away at your screen, so.
And we have a camera in there as well. We can do video conferencing in there, but we also have camera for content. So if you're standing up at the podium and you want to do a traditional lecture, you could put your face on every table in there and then do your PowerPoint presentation on the 6 large display screens scattered around the room,
right.
Or vice versa.
Or a microscope or a piece of paper that you
right.
draw on or a screen that you draw on. You can do all of those things in all those spaces. And the other thing I would reflect back is the last time this space was renovated was 1974 when I was 1 year old. And so it really, that I wish that I had pushed a little harder, because I know our state, and it's an underfunded state, and it took this long to get this space out of it. And now we spent some of the money on a space that is a really nice space for 1983 in terms of how you use it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you find this space most effective when mobile within the classroom? And if so, how do you handle them being able to do everything effectively while they're away from the front?
Well, the touch panel we had is mirrored on an iPad. There's an iPad app that mirrors the touch panel exactly. So you can walk around the classroom using the iPad and change your sources and move things around that way. So that's one way we can do that.
What about voice amplification? Do you use anything for that?
We have a lavalier just like this. We have handheld. We also have the Countryman style headset microphone.
And then the other thing to remember is there is a microphone at every table for push to talk. Yeah. So if you're walking around, only when we actually enable the push part, but yeah, if you're walking around, the ideal, if you'll see how those tables are built, there's 6, but at the end that's open. That's so a facilitator can take a knee and jump into a small group, have a discussion, and then if they want to, the faculty member could just grab that mic and use it too. So, there's a lot of microphone options in that room.
2 things that I would say would be nice to have, just as somebody who teaches in that space. It's a big space, and the students are sitting, and then the screens are about the level of their heads. So I'll be teaching, and someone will use their microphone and ask a question, and it's like God is talking. I'm like, I don't know where you are. Raise your hand, and then I'm kind of spinning around. So if I had a do-over, it sounds ridiculous, but would have some kind of like Price is Right, flashy light or like a flag or something, a blinky, something to do that, because it does make you feel a little bit. It's just weird to talk to a disembodied voice, and especially if they're getting after you about why they got their question wrong, you kind of want that eye contact.
So looks like Ken posted something. Where's Ken at? Hi, Ken. So what do you want to talk us through this one? What you're looking to do?
It's a room we're going to put video conferencing into, 3 projectors, 3 cameras, TV down front. Rough sketch, hard to draw with a finger.
I got you.
Podium.
So you looks like your podium's in the center.
No, the podium's in the top right. There's
Oh,
a
okay.
TV in the center there if you're teaching from the center.
Okay.
There's another TV there for show your content to yourself, and the far side of the projector.
Okay.
It'd be this room.
I got you. So then your projections are around there, and then you got your cameras to the various angles. And are you going to do interaction within the room, or you're just doing interaction with the far side?
Both, yeah.
Both? Okay. Yeah.
Microphones on the tables.
Okay.
Let's see. The room seats 52 people in this room are about to do.
Something,
There will be 2 cameras in there. Sorry.
no, I'm sorry. Kent, what's it called? The one thing I would really like for these kind of roaming teaching situations, is there some way for the camera, if it's supposed to show me, to kind of lock on me, or?
In a room this size, you could use, Vadio has a collar that you can follow around. We're working with our integrator because the room width that David talked about being 95 feet, they've got a 45-foot limit on that. So you get in corners of our room that it won't reach because of light amplification issues. So what we're working on is we're having our integrator build tracking to where we're going to put more access points or more presets, so that when they have the iPad, they can say, oh, I'm at table 30, press table 30 and bring the camera to themselves. So that's where we're getting around this. But in a room like this, yeah, Vadio has, it's a little IR harness that goes around the faculty member's neck, so it will follow you. Also, for your cameras, if you're doing video conferencing in here, the Polycom Eagle Eye systems are really nice. They do tracking based off of facial recognition plus sound, and it's a 2-camera system. And what it does, some of the old ones had this tracking where it made you seasick, where it just moved with the person and it was jittery and jumping. And if you went back and forth, Amy talks, it shoots over to her, it shoots back to me. What it does is it fades. It always has 2 images. It has one of the large group room. So if we switch and David starts talking, it goes out, it does a fade to the whole class. If he continues talking, then that other camera has already zoomed in on him. It'll do a camera switch, and it just picks up real clean. So those would be some things I would suggest.
The other thing I would reflect back is panel discussions are very useful, and that's something really valuable in video conferencing as well, because you can't get a whole panel of people just like you can get one person. So that would be my only reflection back on the shape of this room, is thinking about how it might work for
Did anybody else submit anything? Let me close this one and do a refresh. Doesn't look like anybody else submitted, or if they did, we're having Wi-Fi issues. So,
Can you talk a little bit about the purchasing process? What did you do? Did you have a design that went out for a bid?
Yes.
Or was this a design build?
I wish it had been design build more so. We did get lucky. We came dangerously close to a bad bid winning, but it turned out they made a math error. Somebody only bid on one table, not 30 tables, and when we did the math, then their number was not as good. But we put together the package, we came up with the design, and then we put it out for bid. And it was a sealed bid, and we opened the bids, and it was a low bid that could meet very specific criteria. We did put in some criteria about how close, how far away you had to have a service center, a lot of things. We didn't just say, Bill's House of Pancakes and Electronics on the other side of the country could bid this. There were some specifics. You had to be CTI or CTSI certified. You had to have what's the certification program for AMX to do the programming, whatever, their A+ certification programmer on staff, that sort of thing.
We had a VIP programmer from AMX.
VIP, yeah. And that was, the programming on this, David does most of our small rooms in their RPM product, but this was fairly complex programming, as you can imagine, with that many inputs and outputs all tied together for the whole building.
And you did all that planning and design and purchasing in May to November?
November to May.
Okay.
Yeah. Once again, I would not recommend that. We did it. If you could take year and a half to put together a building this size, I think you'd be better served. Like I say, some of the things I said, the lessons learned, the reasons we did them was just the time frame. I mean, some of those things we kind of thought they might be things that we didn't want to do, but it was the time frame made everybody obviously antsy. It's just we have a difficult space to where we just had to make this happen quickly. So is there anything else we can answer for you all, or that you want to discuss? Are we over time?
About 5 minutes.
Oh,
I think so.
no, we're till 10:10, right? Huh? Oh, I'm sorry. So whoever's next, I'm cutting into your time. I apologize. Thank you all. Let me just go one last slide here. I'll scroll down. I have a QR code you can hit. We have this presentation plus other things out there if you want. There's the QR code. If you want to get that, that's my contact information. And we'd be happy to answer any questions y'all have. Thank you all.